The first tremor of warning reached Commander Trell before any sensor chimed, before any officer snapped to attention, before the vast machinery of the Careen Orbital Defense Lattice woke to threat. It began as a feeling, an instinct, sharpened over 27 cycles of border duty. A pressure behind the ribs, a tightening of breath. Like the silence before a storm, he stood at the central viewport, hands clasped behind his back, staring into the thin smear of starlight draped across Galactic Sector 9. Patrol logs scrolled across the holopanel to his left. Neat columns of expected nothingness. Trell had learned long ago that danger rarely announced itself with fanfare. It arrived quietly, on soft feet, in ways that made the soul stiffen before the mind understood why the Careen considered such instinct a mark of evolution, an inheritance from ancestors who survived on worlds that tried their best to kill them. Trell trusted that instinct. It had saved him more than once. But today, the feeling had teeth. A quiet vibration shivered through the command deck. Not mechanical, emotional, collective. Several officers paused mid-task. "Commander?" Lieutenant Vess murmured from the scanning pit. "Did you feel?" She didn't finish. Her tired eyes were already widening at her console. There it was, the real warning. A pulse. A reading. An object. Trell turned sharply. The holomap flickered, painting the room in shifting blues and golds. Sector 9, normally a calm sheet of deep space, showed a distortion. Not a ship. Not debris. Not any configuration the lattice had cataloged. Something was coming through. "What is that?" Trell asked, voice low. Vess swallowed. "Mass anomaly. Crossing into restricted space at..." "Commander, I need to confirm this. The scale is wrong. Define wrong. All of it." A few officers exchanged a look, nervous, unsure. The hum of the deck deepened, like the station itself braced for what it didn't yet understand. Trell moved to the central well, his boots echoing against the polished alloy floor. The command deck was large, tiered like an amphitheater, but in moments like this, it always felt too small, too fragile. "Project the object," Trell said. The holofield shimmered. For a moment, static like the image itself resisted translation. Then the distortion resolved into form, a silhouette, dark, unfathomably large. Every officer leaned forward instinctively, as if distance might soften the shock. Trell's breath caught. "Stars preserve us," whispered Chief Analyst Brand. No one rebuked him. Even faith sounded reasonable before something like this. The vessel's outline was unlike any recorded species. No organic curvature. No crystalline geometry. No modular exoframes. This ship, if it could be called a ship, was a jagged monolith wrapped in armor plating thicker than their station's hull. It carried lines that spoke of function over beauty, brutality over elegance. But there was purpose. A strange harmony in its angles. It looked ancient and terrifyingly awake. "How big is it?" Trell asked, though dread already curled inside him. Brand's hands trembled over his controls. Running full-scale analysis now. The numbers appeared on the command display. It was impossibly massive. Trell felt the officers behind him exhale as one organism. The sound shaky. "That's..." "Commander, that mass exceeds Dreadnought class. Exceeds Titan classification." "It exceeds anything," Brand stammered. "We don't have a category for this. Speed? Controlled drift. Intentional." Vess's voice faltered. "Commander, whatever this is, it's not lost. It's arriving." The room still. Arriving. The word carried weight. Threat. Judgment. Contact. And Trell pragmatic. Disciplined. Trell felt something colder. Recognition. Not in memory. In instinct. As though some fragment of his mind whispered, "You were meant to fear this." Sector alarms lit crimson along the ceiling. A deep chime pulsed through the deck, slow and resonant, like the heartbeat of a beast waking. Bring weapons grid to readiness state 3, Trell ordered. Fighting to keep his voice steady, officers scrambled. Then something stranger happened. The ship slowed again, lights hidden until now ignited along its hull in a pattern. Not weapon glows. Not propulsion signatures. More like windows. Thousands of small, cold rectangles of white. Is it charging power? Vess asked. No. Bran shook his head. It's broadcasting. What signal type? Trell demanded. Bran tapped several layers of filters. This can't be right. Say it. It's not Karen. Not Ithonian. Not any architecture I know. It's too simple. Too raw. Commander, this is a low-frequency burst using primitive modulation. Primitive? No species of significance used low-frequency analog anymore. It was the language of ancient satellites, forgotten probes, civilizations that barely left their homeworld. So why would something this godlike use it? The signal repeated. A pulse. A pause. Then a string of tones. Try decoding it, Trell said. We're attempting, but suddenly the string of tones clicked. Snapped together like puzzle pieces sliding into place. The translator chirped. Bran looked up sharply. Pale. Commander. The signal contains an identification code. For what? Bran swallowed hard. For a Terran vessel. The silence that followed was absolute. Trell's heartbeat hammered in his ears. Impossible, he said quietly. Not because humans were unknown, though. Every species in the outer rings had heard of them. But that was long ago. Too long. Humanity had vanished from the known galaxy generations earlier. Their colonies fell quiet. Their fleets never returned. Their home system became a myth, then a warning. The species that once defied the void had simply gone, but legends remained. Legends of ships that fought like cornered animals. Legends of crews who prayed before battle. Legends of people who refused extinction with a fury unmatched by any empire. Whispers claimed they had built machines too large, ambitions too wild, confronting threats no one else dared face. And then they disappeared. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others believed they found something in the darkness they were never meant to meet. The younger officers only knew the stories as bedtime terrors or heroic tales, depending who told them. But Trell had always believed the older version, the darker one. Terran? Vess's voice was barely audible. Commander, humans haven't been seen for centuries. Their last transmissions collapsed before my grandparents' time. And no Terran ship this size ever existed, Bran added. At least, nothing recorded. The signal repeated again, calm, unhurried, almost polite. Trell listened carefully. It's not a threat code, he murmured. Bran nodded weakly. No, it's an introduction. Trell stared at the monstrous silhouette. The ship drifted closer, each kilometer of approach amplifying the oppressive sense of presence. It wasn't just large. It was deliberate. Ancient, yet built with a precision no decaying relic should have. What's the code translating to? Trell asked. Bran exhaled shakily. It's a registry string. A very old one. Pre-galactic standard calendar. Commander, the vessel identifies itself as a pause. No one breathed. Asterisk TSS revelation. Bran finished. The name echoed through the command deck like a prophecy. Revelation, Vess whispered. No species uses names like that anymore. Trell didn't answer. His gaze locked on the black leviathan on the screen. He remembered an elder from his youth telling them stories, old stories, about humans naming ships like prayers, as if speaking into existence something bigger than themselves. Courage, faith, defiance, names, like endurance, solace, revelation. Humans didn't choose names. They proclaimed them. A soft tremor went through the deck. Gravity regulators flickered just once. Everyone froze. That wasn't us, Vess said. A moment later, station telemetry confirmed it. The human ship had just pivoted. Not its weapons, its direction. It was looking at them. Trell felt the hair along his arms rise. "Commander," Bran whispered, "its scans are sweeping us. Is it targeting?" "No, just observing." A beat. "Sir, it could obliterate us already if that was its intent." Trell knew that was true. The revelation was simply too large, too armored, too silent. Their defenses would break against it like dust. Fear wasn't taught. It was remembered. Asterisk, and every origin species in the galaxy remembered humans, whether they admitted it or not. Something deep in evolution retained the instinct to step back from fire. The revelation drifted. Even closer, a low hum vibrated through the deck again. Trell felt it in his bones. Not painful, more like standing near a colossal engine, or the heartbeat of a sleeping titan. Something about it struck him as reverent. For a moment, he wondered absurdly if this encounter had been written somewhere. If this vessel had crossed the dark for a reason, one of the junior officers, a quiet believer, murmured under his breath, "Maybe the Maker sends warnings before judgment." Trell didn't rebuke him this time either, because in his chest, something whispered the same, "Commander." Vess called softly. The ship. It just opened a communication window. Visual? No, text only, one line. In old Terran standard. Trell stepped to her console. The message was simple, beautifully simple. "We remember. Do you?" Trell felt the world tilt. The room was silent. Absolutely silent. And then the revelation dimmed its outer lights, subtle, deliberate, like a predator lowering its gaze. Or a diplomat bowing politely. Every officer looked at Trell. Waiting, terrified, awestruck. Trell inhaled through tight lungs. "They're not here to attack," he said quietly. "How can you tell?" Bran asked. Trell stared at the dark giant on the holoscreen. "Because if they wanted us dead," he whispered, "they wouldn't have announced themselves." He straightened slowly. "Prepare a response. What should we say?" Trell let out a breath that trembled just slightly. "The truth," he said. "Whatever this is. Whatever they've come back for. We answer with honesty." Lights dimmed. Officers leaned over their consoles, hands shaking. Somewhere deep inside the revelation, a silhouette shifted, just one glimmer of movement. Like someone aboard that impossible vessel was waiting, listening, hoping. And Trell couldn't shake the intuition, soft, irrational, yet powerful, that two worlds were about to collide, not in war, but in meaning. He felt something greater in the moment, vast, quiet, present. As though the universe itself leaned closer. As though the Maker breathed between they stars. Trell opened a channel. "Send. We remember stories." His voice steadied. "We feared they were true." The message transmitted. The room waited, suspended on the edge of fate. The revelation's lights flickered. Once. Then twice. Then something began to open along the hull. A hangar. A door. A gesture. Part invitation. Part warning. Part revelation. Trell's heart pounded. Whatever came next would change everything. From the darkness of the revelation, something emerged. And the command deck forgot how to breathe. Asterisk, the hangar door unfolded like the eyelid of a sleeping god. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just inevitable. The plates parted with seismic grace, each section sliding into the next without sound, without visible thrusters or mechanical strain. A human ship of this size should have groaned under its own mass. This one opened as if the laws of physics obeyed it. Not the other way around. Every officer in the Karen command deck leaned forward. Unconsciously, something was moving inside the vast hollow space. Something small compared to the Titanic vessel, yet large enough to cast a silhouette, nearly the size of their patrol cutters. The holoview zoomed. Automatically, Trell felt his throat tighten. Inside the hangar of the revelation, A single craft hovered into view. A shuttle, human-made, angular, armored, still scarred with the marks of travel through places no ordinary species survived. Lights glowed pale, white beneath its hull, cold as a winter star. "Commander?" Vess whispered. "It's powering up its approach vector. Trajectory?" Trell asked, though he already knew. "It's headed toward us." Every officer stiffened. The command deck wasn't made for moments like this. It was designed to monitor trade lanes, track smugglers, occasionally chase down border raiders. It wasn't meant to greet the ghosts of a vanished species. "Raise shields," Trell said. "Level?" Bran asked. Trell hesitated. If they raised them too high, it would signal fear. Too low, and they risked annihilation. Minimal, he decided. A formality only. The shields shimmered around the station, a thin veil of plasma that would do nothing against a ship like the Revelation, but at least allowed the Karen to pretend they had dignity. The shuttle drifted closer. Its surface bore the marks of real battle-deep plasma scoring. Melted armor and one long scar running the length of the port side. Like something enormous had clawed at it. "Scan it," Trell said. Bran's console hummed. Then the analysis came back. "Commander, I don't understand this. Explain. It's too old." Trell frowned. "How old?" "Hundreds of cycles. Maybe more. But it's flying like it was built yesterday. Internal power signatures are." "Commander, the readings don't make sense. It's as if parts of it are ancient, and others." Bran swallowed. "Others aren't measurable at all." The officers exchanged looks. Not scientific questions, fearful ones. "Does it have weapons active?" Vess asked. "Yes," Bran whispered. "But they're not aimed." "Not aimed." That mattered. The shuttle rotated, aligning with the docking ring of the lattice's primary command port. Its movements weren't smooth. They were precise, almost reverent. As though it respected the space it was entering, or the eyes watching it. Trell stepped closer to the viewport, feeling the weight of history tremble through the metal beneath his boots. The nearer the shuttle came, the stronger that sensation grew. The moment felt strange, too large for this room. Too heavy for words. Like something was guiding it. Like something wanted this meeting to happen. "Commander," said a quiet voice behind him. Trell turned. Officer Wren, the youngest. "The Believer. There's something you need to see," Wren said softly. He held a portable display. On it, a fractal of flight data and timestamps scrolled downward. Wren expanded a specific line one buried under a column of system echoes. Trell read it, a faint sub-frequency, hidden in the interference of the Revelation signal. Barely there, like a whisper behind a whisper, and it repeated only 4 characters. AMEN. The blood drained from Trell's face. "Is that Terran language?" Vess asked. Wren nodded. "An old religious affirmation. Humans used it in prayer." "It means, I know what it means," Trell whispered. Silence spread slowly across the room. A chill passed through the officers. Not horror, but awe. The kind that made the air feel different. As if the moment was no longer just political. No longer just first contact, but a crossing of something spiritual. Trell felt it deep in his chest. That quiet presence. That impossible order. The sense that someone, somewhere, had set this path long before he was born. The shuttle clicked into docking alignment. Clamps extended from the station, locking onto its hull with a soft metallic embrace. A tone chimed across the deck, an invitation for boarding. "Should we launch security teams?" Bran asked. "No," Trell said immediately. "But no weapons," Trell repeated. "No armor. No intimidation." Vess turned. "Commander, this could be a trap." Trell shook his head. "A species that builds a ship like that doesn't need deception." He walked toward the exit. "Commander, you're going alone?" Bran asked, stunned. "Protocol," Trell said. First contact, if this even counts as first contact, requires a single representative at initial greeting. And he hesitated. Something inside him was certain, calm, steady, like an old instinct he didn't remember learning. They want someone to meet them without fear. He didn't add the rest, but he felt it. Some unseen intelligence wanted him there. As Trell exited the command deck, the officers watched in tense silence. No one spoke. No one breathed too loud. The weight of the unknown pressed on them all. The walk to the docking bay was longer than Trell remembered. His footsteps made soft echoes along the curved metallic corridor. Light strips pulsed softly overhead, gentle, calming. He wasn't afraid. He expected to be. Expected his hands to shake or his breathing to strain. But instead, he felt sharpened. As if something in the air made his thoughts clearer. His heartbeat steadier. He reached the airlock. The inner door stood open. The outer door leading into the Terran shuttle waited at the far end of a narrow, pressurized tunnel. Its surface was dark iron gray, chipped at the edges, bearing a symbol he recognized only from ancient archives, a small blue-white star. The old emblem of Terran deep space fleets. Trell stepped forward. The door sensed him, and it opened. Warm air rolled out slowly, unexpectedly warm. A scent drifted with it. Burnt metal, ozone, and something else. Something faintly organic, like old smoke and human memory. The interior lights glowed dimly, enough to paint the walls in soft white. Trell stepped inside. His boots clicked on a metal floor that felt heavier, denser than Karin's alloys. And then he saw them. Footprints, human footprints, stamped faintly into a patch of dust near the entrance. Barely visible, but they're real, human. Trell's heart slowed. Someone walked here. Recently or long ago, he couldn't tell. But the imprint spoke to him more powerfully than any signal. Humans existed. Humans stood on this deck. Humans built this ship. The shuttle interior was strangely silent. Not dead silent, alive silent. Like the quiet inside a cathedral. He took 3 more steps. The lights ahead flickered. A hologram activated. A figure materialized, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an old Terran naval uniform with scorched plating along one side. Not alive, but not pre-recorded. The hologram looked directly at Trell. Trell froze. The figure's face weathered, bearded, scarred, held an expression carved from exhaustion and resolve. Human. Undeniably human. And yet the eyes. They felt aware. The hologram spoke. Voice deep, steady, scarred by time. If you are seeing this, then you are not an enemy. Trell's breath caught. And if you are not an enemy, the hologram continued, then you must listen very carefully. Humanity has not returned to wage war. A pause. We have returned because something else has. The room tilted. Trell felt suddenly cold. The hologram flickered, revealing static, fractured images of what looked like ruins, broken worlds. Vessels torn apart by forces no weapon could replicate. Then the image steadied. We come not as conquerors, the figure said. We come as survivors, as warnings, and as witnesses to what wakes in the void. The hologram took 1 step closer, though it was only light. We remember fear. We remember loss. We remember God. Trell inhaled sharply. The human's gaze, rendered in flickering blue, was almost gentle. And now we ask you, will you stand with us when the darkness arrives? The hologram dissolved. Asterisk. A new signal chimed behind Trell, Argent. His wrist. Come. It was Vess. Commander. Her voice cracked. The revelation, its systems are powering up. All of them. Trell turned toward the exit, but before he stepped out, another sound echoed faintly in the shuttle. A whisper. Not digital. Not mechanical. Like a breath carried through metal. Or memory. Or faith. Choose well. Trell froze, then the airlock. Lights snapped red. He ran. Trell burst through the Airlock just as the lattice's alarms blared. "Commander, what happened?" Vess shouted. Trell didn't answer immediately. He stared out the bay viewport. The Revelation was no longer drifting. It was waking. Lines of gold light crawled across its hull. Deep resonant hums pulsed through space. Energy readings skyrocketed. Brand shouted over comms. "Commander, it's charging a main array. This power output is impossible." Trell knew it wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed behind them. At the stars. At something coming. "Commander," Vess whispered, voice shaking. "What did the humans say in there?" Trell finally spoke. They asked, "If we will stand with them." Vess stared. "Against what?" Trell looked at the Revelation. At the growing dread in its stance. At the quiet anger humming through its colossal frame, and he felt the truth settle like a weight placed by unseen hands. "Something. Humans survived," he said. "And no one else did." Behind the Revelation, space began to ripple. Like something enormous was forcing its way through reality. Trell stepped forward, heart hammering. Because now he remembered something too, something older than fear. Warning from childhood stories. When humans run, the galaxy should hide. When humans stand, the galaxy should pray. When humans return, something worse has come back with them. Trell exhaled. "We're not witnessing first contact," he whispered. "We're witnessing a warning." A tear in space widened behind the Revelation. Something moved inside it. And Trell felt every instinct he possessed scream in unison. The tear in space opened fully, and Sector 9 finally saw what the humans had fled. Asterisk. The tear in space widened with a sound that no ears could hear, but every soul felt. A vibration that crawled through metal, bone, and thought. On the command deck, officers clutched consoles as lights flickered, as gravity lurched, as the fabric of Sector 9 shuddered, under the arrival of something that did not belong to this universe. Trell stood in the center of the Pizinu. Chaos, unmoving, eyes fixed on the rift. He had seen storms on half-terraformed moons. He had stood before war cruisers of the Dominar Collective. He had watched dying suns devour themselves. But nothing made his skin crawl like this. The rift bloomed outward, its edges glowing with an ugly, unnatural sheen. Not light, not color, more like reality bleeding under pressure. Vess slammed her hands onto her console. "Commander, space-time distortion is climbing past safe limits. If this continues, the entire lattice could—" "I know," Trell said softly. The words felt too small for what unfolded before them. The Revelation drifted into position between the rift and the Kareen defense station. It didn't brandish weapons. It didn't posture. It simply moved like a guardian stepping before frightened children. A communication ping chimed across the deck. From the Revelation. Brand said, throat tight. "A single line." "Read it," Trell ordered. Brand hesitated. Then, "Do not interfere." Trell closed his eyes briefly. Not a threat. A plea, or worse, an acknowledgement that the Karen could not possibly make a difference. The rift unfolds a shape pushed against the tear from the other side. First a shadow. Then a distortion. Then a hulking mass of something. "It's not a ship," Vess whispered. "It's too uneven. Not uneven. Not asymmetrical. Wrong. The anomaly ruptured into full view. The entity that emerged had no clear outline. Its edges wavered, snapping between geometry and formlessness, like a creature struggling to decide what shape reality allowed it to take. Black surfaces bent inward like collapsed metal, but pulsed outward like organs. Portions of it glowed, but the light felt sick, as if it escaped from broken rules. And at its center, a single red aperture. Not an eye. A target. A hunger. Vess's voice cracked. "Commander." I think it's scanning us. Trell felt the words like frost. The aperture swiveled in slow, horrific precision until it fixed on the lattice, on them. Bran whispered, "It sees us." Trell's instincts, the ancient survival reflex buried in every species, screamed, "Hide, pray, run." But he stood still, because the revelation didn't move to hide. It moved to answer. Gold light lanced along its hull, brighter now, forming line circuits, runes. Something that hummed with ancient design and unshakable purpose. A bass vibration filled the deck. Ren whispered, "Commander, I feel like something is praying." Trell didn't correct him. The revelation seemed to gather light, as though pulling from someplace deeper than its own engines, someplace older. The ship's silhouette sharpened. Its presence grew. Then Trell realized it wasn't preparing a weapon, it was preparing a shield. The human vessel positioned itself fully between the lattice and the entity emerging from the rift. Its plating shifted, seamless slabs unfolding with organic grace, layering upon one another until the ship resembled a colossal armored guardian. Vess stared. "Why would they shield us?" "Because they came as warnings," Trell said softly. "And warnings protect what still has time to live." The entity speaks a sound, if it could be called that, echoed across comes, not a voice, not language, a scraping of consciousness across consciousness, a cold intelligence, ancient and starved. Touching their minds with curiosity that felt like a knife, officers clutched their heads. Bran collapsed to one knee. Gasping, Trell stayed upright only through force of will. The aperture turned toward the revelation. The entity projected something then, a burst of red-black static. Bran coughed hard, forcing out words. "It's communicating. But the signal is corrupting translation systems." "Filter it," Trell ordered. "Commander, the signal isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to break the mind trying to understand it." Trell clenched his jaw. A species that communicated through psychic corrosion. No wonder humans vanished, no wonder they ran, and no wonder they returned armed with relics of impossible power. Vess whispered hoarsely, "Commander, something else is happening." The hollow-view zoomed automatically to the aperture. It brightened, widened. A beam of energy or entropy began to form. Impact in 7 seconds. Bran cried, "On the revelation?" Trell asked, "No, on us." Trell's heart stopped, but before he spoke, before anyone breathed, the revelation responded. The human answer, a deep, resonant pulse erupted from the human vessel. Golden radiance unfurled outward in a sphere, expanding, stabilizing, humming with frequencies Trell's body recognized without understanding. Warmth, steadiness, purpose. Ren whispered through tears, "It feels like home." Trell didn't ask how. He felt it too. The human shield blossomed fully, a perfect sphere encasing the lattice. Shimmering with quiet power, the enemy beam fired. Red-black chaos crashed against the golden barrier. The station shook violently. Consoles sparking, lights flickering, metal groaning in agony. Officers fell to the floor, gripping railings, screaming as the force rattled teeth and bones. Trell braced himself against the central console. Muscles straining, vision blurring. Still, the shield held. The revelation trembled, but did not yield. The golden barrier brightened and pushed back. The entity reeled, its form glitching, twisting into new impossible shapes. Bran gasped, "Commander, the revelation is burning through energy levels I can't quantify. Whatever they're using, it's not technology." Ren whispered, "It feels like a prayer cast into metal." Trell didn't argue. The revelation surged forward. For the first time, the entity recoiled like a predator, recognizing another predator, one older, wounded, but unbroken. Vess's console crackled. "Commander, we're receiving fragmented Terran transmissions. Old logs, centuries old." "From where?" Trell asked. "From the revelation itself." It's broadcasting them. Trell exchanged a glance with Bran, put it on audio. Static, crackles, then human voices echoed across the command deck. Tired, hardened, desperate. If anyone hears this, we hold them at Bay 17. Revelation is all that's left. Tell them we don't die easy. Someone out there must remember us. The logs dissolved into noise. Silence filled the deck. Stars. Vess whispered. They didn't vanish. They fought. They survived, Trell said. Longer than anyone else. He stepped forward until he stood inches from the viewport. And now they're back. Because whatever they faced. His eyes locked on the monstrous entity, its form now twisting violently as the revelation pressed against it. It found another way in. The aperture shrank, then widened abruptly. A second strike began to form, twice as large. Bran shouted, "Commander! This one is aimed at the revelation." Trell felt his stomach drop. The first blast had nearly shattered them, even with the shield. A second direct hit. Can the revelation withstand that? Vess asked. Trell stared. He watched the human vessel brace itself. Hull plates folding, energy coils glowing white-hot. Engines burning with impossible fury. He didn't know if it could survive, but he knew one thing. It would try. Humans always tried. The second beam tore toward the revelation, a torrent of red-black annihilation. The revelation didn't dodge, didn't cower, didn't blink. It roared. Light burst from its core, gold intensified to white. The shield shattered outward, reconfiguring into a spear of pure energy. The revelation hurled it directly into the oncoming blast. Two forces collided. Light and darkness. Faith and oblivion. Human defiance and cosmic hunger. The collision shook the lattice so violently that Trell felt his knees buckle. Vess screamed as her console exploded in sparks. Bran shielded Ren with his body as debris fell from above. Trell gripped the railing until blood slicked his palm. Outside, the revelation strained forward, inch by inch, pushing its energy, speared deeper into the heart of the enemy blast. The entity twisted, shrieking without sound, its form unraveling. The rift behind it flickered wildly. Trell felt the air shift, a strange, indescribable moment of balance, as if the universe itself weighed two futures in its hands. Then a crack, a roar, a blinding flash. The entity imploded. The rift snapped shut. Silence swept across Sector 9. Like a tidal wave, the revelation drifted motionless. Smoke rising from a dozen points along its hull. The monstrous ship, the human Leviathan, looked suddenly small, wounded, exhausted, but alive. Trell exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Vess whispered, "Commander, they saved us." "No," Trell said softly. "They saved everyone." His gaze locked on the revelation. Single line of text appeared on his console. From the humans. This was only the first. Trell felt a chill, and then a second line. "We need to talk." He swallowed hard. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, we do." Outside, the revelation slowly turned its battered hull toward the lattice, waiting. Watching. And in Trell's chest, a new truth settled. This was no longer a warning. This was a call to prepare, because whatever hunted humanity had now found the rest of the galaxy. The revelation opened a channel, this time not with warnings, but with a voice the galaxy had not heard in centuries. Asterisk. The bridge of the Varkos defense bastion felt smaller than usual, airtighter. Lights dimmer, every shadow suddenly suspicious. Commander Trell stood at the forward viewport with his hands clasped behind him, tail coiled with stiff tension. From here, the stars rolled like a cold ocean, broken only by the burn-white glow of Sector 9's orbital rings, and hanging just beyond them, barely visible against the void, was the impossible, the human vessel. Still distant, still silent, yet Trell could feel it, an ache behind the breastplate, a hum beneath the station's alloyed floor. His species had no word for premonition, but he suspected humans did. They often used strange expressions like gut feeling, faith, and someone's watching over me. He had mocked that kind of softness once. Now he understood why civilizations feared humans, but could never dismiss them. They were creatures who believed in things even their instruments couldn't see. Trell inhaled deeply, and the air tasted like storm metal. "Commander," Officer Yarrow said, voice hushed. "Requesting permission to run a secondary spectrum scan. The primary array still shows nothing. No energy signatures. No emissions. No thermal bleed." "Denied," Trell replied automatically. "But sir, denied because we already know the result." Trell turned, eyes narrowing. "The object is there. Our sensors simply refuse to believe it." A murmur rippled across the bridge. No one argued. Not after what the first contact code had done. The ancient Terran signal was still listed on every military archive in the known galaxy, a ghost identifier reserved for a species that was supposed to be shattered, scattered, and near extinct. Some said humans were refugees. Others insisted they'd vanished into the cosmic dark, chasing myths or exile. A few whispered they'd died altogether, but no record, no archive, no diplomatic posting. No war log had ever mentioned a surviving Terran warship, much less one larger than anything Trell's scanners could comprehend. He exhaled again. "I want the room calm," he said. Officer Delm swallowed audibly. "Sir, with respect, calm is in very short supply." Trell almost smiled, almost. "Then fake it." The bridge staff tried. They straightened their posture, lowered their voices, focused on their panels. But their tails twitched, claws tapped, ears flicked. Fear leaked from them like cold steam. Trell couldn't blame them. He felt it too. It wasn't the ordinary fear of enemy fleets or pirate swarms. It wasn't tactical fear or political fear. It was primal, older than ranks and uniforms. Fear of the unknown. Fear of a species that history swore was gone. Fear of something that had survived when it shouldn't have. He looked once more at the distant, half-invisible silhouette. Humans. They had always done the impossible. "Trell," whispered a voice at his shoulder. General Voran, silver-scaled, broad-shouldered, and far too old for frontline postings, had approached without a sound. Age did that. It replaced strength with stillness. "General?" Trell said. Voran's eyes darkened as he stared toward the void. "I served in the Sorrow Belt during the Terran Exodus," he said quietly. "Long before your time." Trell stiffened. The Exodus was ancient history, one of the galaxy's most painful chapters. Billions of humans had fled the collapse, scattering through broken star lanes. Many died, many vanished. A few integrated into other species' worlds, fragmented into cultures that barely remembered Earth. Very few spoke about it openly. Voran continued. "I once saw a Terran escort cruiser, small, old, barely held together. But even then," his jaw tightened, "even then, it felt like standing beside a predator that refused to die." Trell studied the older officer's hands. They were trembling. "General," Trell said softly, "are you suggesting prior knowledge of a Terran capital-class vessel?" Voran shook his head. "No, such a thing should not exist. The largest ship humanity ever fielded was 1/3 the size of the object we're seeing, and yet here it is." "Yes," Voran whispered. "Here it is." The two stood in silence. A silence too large for the room, too heavy for language. A silence that felt like standing in the eye of creation, waiting for the first thunder to roll. "Commander," Down's voice cracked. "We have another ping." Every officer jerked toward their panels. Trell felt his throat tighten. "Source." "From the vessel," Down said. "Same vector. Same impossible mass profile. Type?" Deln swallowed hard. Audio. The room froze. Trell nodded slowly. Put it through. A beat. A single chime. Then static. 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 And under it, faint but unmistakable, a human voice. Sector 9. Unidentified station. Respond. The sound was old, rough, almost dusty. As if spoken through a throat that hadn't felt ease in years. As if the voice had traveled across galaxies and time itself to reach them. Several officers flinched. One stepped back in fear. Another muttered, "That language. No translator database has processed Terran standard in centuries." "It is unmistakable," General Voran said hoarsely. Trell felt his own heartbeat slam against his ribs. That voice calm. Steady, human, cut through the bridge like a blade. Not loud. Not threatening. Simply real. And real was worse than terrifying. Real meant history had just stood up from its grave. Real meant the galaxy was no longer what they thought it was. "Commander?" Yarrow whispered. "What do we do?" Trell didn't answer immediately. He was staring at his own reflection in the viewport, eyes wide. Scales pale, posture rigid. It was the posture of a man facing a truth bigger than his own species. He managed to breathe. "Open a channel," he said. The officers looked at him in disbelief. "Sir." "Now." Deln's claws rattled against the console. "Channel open." Trell drew himself tall. "This is Commander Trell of the Varco's defense bastion," he said, voice steady despite the tremor crawling beneath his skin. "Identify yourselves." For a moment, the void offered no reply. Then the audio crackled again, and a second human voice, deeper, clearer, stronger, answered. "Trell, we read you." The room collectively stopped breathing. "This is the United Terran vessel Sol's Promise." United Terran. A name that shouldn't exist. A nation that shouldn't exist. A people who were supposed to be scattered dust. Requesting safe approach vector. Trell's legs nearly buckled. Sol's Promise. The title reverberated through him, ancient, symbolic, dangerous. Humans loved naming their ships after hope and heartbreak. He swallowed. "General," he murmured, "that ship is asking permission." Voran's eyes were wet. Humans never lost their manners, even when they lost everything else. Trell turned back to the "Sol's Promise," he said slowly. "You are entering restricted military space. Provide your registry." He hesitated. "And your purpose." The reply came after a breath. Not a threat, not a challenge, just 7 quiet words that froze the bridge cold. "We are coming home, Commander Trell." No one spoke. Not one officer moved. The words echoed through the chamber like a divine whisper, soft. Simple, yet carrying a weight no armada could rival. "We are coming home." Trell wasn't religious. His species had no concept of a single creator, no unified myth about origins or destiny. But in that moment, something behind the stars seemed to exhale. As if the universe itself had been waiting for this line. And Trell logical. Disciplined Trell felt a shiver of something he'd never felt before. Not faith, but the shape of faith. As if the order of existence had shifted. As if something older and wiser had subtly repositioned the pieces on the cosmic board. He tightened his grip on the console railing. "Gods!" Someone whispered behind him. No one corrected them. Not even those who didn't believe. Some truths didn't need temples. General Voran stepped forward. Voice trembling. "Sol's Promise," he said into the comm. "Humanity has not claimed presence in this sector for centuries." "How did you?" Static swallowed the channel. Lights flickered. Every console glowed red. Mass shadow increasing. Yarrow shouted. "The ship is decelerating. No shifting, Commander. Its gravity wake is interacting with the station." "What magnitude?" Trell demanded. "Too high." "Too." The station groaned. Metal cried. "Panels." VIBRATED. It felt less like an attack and more like standing near a passing colossus something. So huge reality needed a moment to adjust to it. Then everything went still. Lights normalized, panels stabilized, breaths released. Trell opened his eyes. He hadn't realized he'd closed them. "Report," he ordered. Yarrow's voice came out thin. "The ship. It's now visible on visual spectrum." Trell turned slowly toward the VIEWPOR, and his heart stopped. The human warship had emerged from shadow like a continent unfolding, a titanic silhouette of black alloy and quiet fire, layered hull plating, like the scales of a sleeping god, a forward prow carved with the faintest shimmer of ancient script, Terran standard, old Earth glyphs, long forgotten by most. And at its heart, a single banner etched into metallic skin: humanity.alive.returned.reforged. No sensor had captured this. No archive had predicted this. No species had been prepared for this. The bridge remained silent, awed, terrified, reverent. Trell couldn't breathe. His voice finally escaped, barely audible. "Stars preserve us." Beside him, Vorin whispered, "No, not the stars. Something larger." Maybe he meant fate. Maybe he meant destiny. Maybe he meant God, the quiet mind behind the universe. Trell didn't know. He only knew one thing. Humanity had come back with a ship that moved like a prayer through metal. And prayers proper ones were never quiet. As Trell stared at the colossal Terran vessel, every console on the bridge lit up with a single chilling alert. Human warship activating main hangar bay. Something or someone was coming aboard. And the station was not ready for what humanity would step out carrying. Asterisk. The alert pulsed across the bridge like a heartbeat, slow at first, then accelerating until it felt as though the walls themselves were bracing for impact. Human warship activating main hangar bay. The words repeated in crimson across every holopanel, each flash bright enough to paint the fear on every officer's face. "Commander." Trell's throat tightened. Something was coming. Something the galaxy had not witnessed in centuries. He forced himself to breathe. "Yarrow," Trell said, his voice steady despite the coil in his gut. "Confirm proximity." Yarrow tapped frantically at his console, cross-referencing internal sensors. "Commander, the Terran vessel is lowering the boarding craft." A hush. Even the hum of the ventilation felt quieter. General Vorin stepped beside Trell, the lines at the corners of his eyes deepening. "A boarding craft means they intend diplomacy," the general murmured. "Or reclamation," Trell said before he could stop himself. Vorin glanced sideways. "You believe they've come to seize Sector 9? Trell didn't answer, because the truth, the real naked truth, he didn't know what humans wanted. No one did. Not anymore. Not after they'd vanished into myth, scattered by disaster and loss. Not after rumors of extinction. Not after centuries of silence broken only by faint, untraceable signals, half prayers lost to the cosmic dark. But Trell felt something else beneath the anxiety, an echo of awe. Like standing inside an ancient cathedral and not knowing why your breath softened. He inhaled deeply, and the air tasted like dust and ozone. A storm was coming. "Commander," Deln said from across the room, "gravitic sensors are struggling." "How so?" Deln turned her screen toward him. The numbers jittered, jumped, collapsed, then rebuilt themselves in new formations that no Varkonian device could interpret. "It's as if the boarding craft is heavier on the inside than its outside mass suggests." Vorin exhaled slowly. Humans were always fond of physics, and bending it. A beat. Then the station vibrate. Not violently, not dangerously, just enough to feel. Notice. As if something massive had shifted outside. presence approaching with the patience of a titan. The bridge lights flickered, panels dimmed, and a soft, deep thrum rolled through the deck, a sound that didn't feel mechanical. It felt alive. "Commander," Yarrow whispered. "The human vessel's hangar bay is aligning with Docking Arm 7. Trell's chest tightened. "Docking Arm 7 isn't designed for ships this size." "Agreed," Yarrow said, voice trembling. "But the human ship isn't asking permission. It's adjusting itself for us. What does that mean?" Deln asked. "Compassion," Vorin said quietly. "Or confidence." Trell wasn't sure which. Terrified him more. The bridge screen shifted to exterior view, and Trell saw it happen. The massive bay door of the Sol's Promise cracked open, light spilling out like a sunrise breaking across dark water. It wasn't harsh or militaristic. It was warm, controlled, deliberate. The hangar interior glowed amber gold, like fire reflected off old steel. Inside, silhouettes moved. Humanoid. Tall. Armored in shapes Trell didn't recognize. A docking craft, sleek, angular, predatory, unfolded from its berth. Its thrusters pulsed with deep blue radiance, almost too smooth, too quiet. "This is impossible," Yarrow whispered. "Humanity never had this level of engineering." "This looks like evolution," Vorin said. "Pain makes species stronger. Humans endured more pain than most." The craft drifted from the hangar. Its hull shimmered with heat haze. Its underbelly bore a name, stamped in old Terran script. Trell's pulse stumbled. Why that name? Why one from ancient human myth, a story of descent into darkness, searching for something lost? The boarding craft rotated. Aligned with Docking Arm 7. And closed the distance like a slow heartbeat. "Commander, we're receiving a second transmission." Deln's panel blinked. Another human message. This one not an audio hail. This one encrypted. "This doesn't match any known Terran protocol," she said. Voice thin. "Try to decode it," Trell ordered. I can't." Vorin frowned. "Is it a weapon signature?" "No," Deln said. "It's—" "Commander, I don't know how else to explain this." "Explain it anyway." "It looks like a prayer." The room froze. "What?" Trell said. Deln enlarged the transmission. It was text, simple, plain, old Terran standard, transliterated for non-human systems. Anyone could read it. It said, "Guide us with steady hands as we return." A silence deeper than fear settled across the bridge. Vorin whispered, almost reverently, "They're invoking someone. Or something." Trell stared at the words. Humans had always believed in things without proof. God, destiny, purpose, the unseen architecture behind existence. Trell had mocked that once, but now the universe felt too ordered, too precise, too intentional. As if something beyond species and borders had woven their paths back together. Trell's chest constricted. An unfamiliar tightness that wasn't fear. It was doubt. A voice in his mind whispered, "What if everything we were taught about them is wrong? What if they didn't disappear because they fell, but because they were building something we couldn't understand? What if they came back not as refugees, but as witnesses?" Another thought pushed in, uninvited, strange, fragile. What if they're not here to take? What if they're here to ask? He curled his claws slowly against his palms. Faith wasn't a concept his species used. But something like faith was stirring in him, quiet, unshaped, uncomfortable. A belief that this moment wasn't random. That this encounter had been waiting for them. Waiting for him. General Vorin placed a hand on his shoulder. Heavy, warm, grounding. "You're trembling," the general said softly. "So is the station." Trell replied. Vorin nodded, gaze distant. Even metal knows when it's in the presence of history. The boarding craft reached the docking ring. A soft metallic click echoed through the ship's systems, followed by a slow, Deep hiss as the airlocks pressurized together. Docking Arm 7's lights flickered. From yellow to green. Connection complete. Atmospheric exchange balanced. Boarding authorized. A message appeared across Trell's console, simple, unadorned. Permission to disembark. His throat dried. His pulse thundered. Everyone waited for him. General Voron inclined his head. Commander, your decision. Trell exhaled slowly, and the breath tasted like destiny. Allow boarding, he said. Bridge held its breath. Open docking arm 7. A single chime rang through the station. Then dash across the monitors. Across the entire defense bastion. Across every officer's trembling gaze. The inner airlock door slid open. Steam rolled outward. Light poured in. And the first human stepped through. Not a ghost. Not a myth. Not a story whispered by ancient soldiers. A man, tall, armored, helmet under one arm. His eyes dark. Tired, unbroken, scanned the corridor with a calmness that felt older than war. He placed a hand on the docking rail. Grounding himself, and with a voice steady as the horizon, he spoke 9 words. Commander Trell. We've traveled far to find you. Trell's breath caught because behind the human, stepping into the light, was something far more shocking. A child. A human child. Alive. Fearless. Watching the aliens with innocent, unblinking curiosity. And with her arrival, the galaxy's oldest fear began to wake. The corridor outside docking arm 7 felt unnaturally narrow. Commander. Trell stood at the front of the reception detail. 10 security officers in formal stance. General Voron beside him. Everyone's posture was rigid, tails coiled tight, claws tucked despite instinct screaming. Otherwise, but Trell barely noticed any of it. His attention, his entire being, was locked on the small human stepping through the steam. She was perhaps 8 or 9 by human aging standards. Small frame, dark boots scuffing softly against the deck floor, hair tied back in a loose braid that brushed her collar. A simple gray jumpsuit. No armor, no visible implants. No insignia. Just a child, a human child, alive. Trell felt something inside him stumble, something ancient. Buried deep in the bones of species across the galaxy. An instinct older than war, older than politics, older than memory. Fear of what humanity could become when it protected its young. Behind Trell, several officers took involuntary steps backward. One whispered, barely audible, "Stars help us." They brought a seed. A seed. The word tasted wrong in Trell's mind, but appropriate. Humans with children and permanence, future, resolve. No species carried its young into dangerous territory unless it believed, with absolute certainty, it would survive what came next. Voron made a low, trembling hum in his throat. Trell. This changes everything. Yes. It did. Because up until this moment, Trell could pretend, could hope, that maybe the human warship was a diplomatic remnant, or a last surviving relic, or a wandering ghost ship with more legend than substance. But a child? A child meant civilization. Not scattered tribes. Not broken survivors. Not remnants clinging to myths. This was a people returned to whole, strong, unafraid. Trell swallowed. His voice felt like it had been sanded down to bone. Identify yourselves. The tall human man stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on the child's shoulder. His armor's sleek black plates, softened with matte gray trim, seemed built for mobility rather than intimidation. His face was lined with fatigue but calm, deeply calm. Like someone who had long ago made peace with danger, he gave a short, respectful nod. "Commander Trell," he said. "I am Captain Abram Jace of the Sol's Promise." Trell blinked. Captain. A rank humans hadn't officially used in over 150 years. The man continued. "And this," he said gently, "is Alira." The girl lifted her gaze. Her eyes were dark and steady, too observant for her age, too awake. She studied Trell like he was a puzzle piece. That didn't quite fit the picture she carried in her mind. Trell felt his scales prickle under her. Scrutiny. General Voran stepped forward. This child. She is your crew? Captain Jace smiled faintly sadly, in a way. She travels with us because she must. Trell frowned. Must? Why bring a child into restricted military space? Into potential conflict? Jace shifted his helmet beneath one arm. Because she's safer with us than anywhere else. The words weren't arrogant, they weren't proud, they were simply true. And that truth hit Trell like a silent blow. His breath left him, because of this monstrous ship, this impossible technology, this return from oblivion, was what humans considered safety. What horrors had they endured out there? What crucible had reforged them? He opened his mouth. But Alira spoke first. Her voice was soft, clear, slightly melodious, like she'd been trained to hold her breath between syllables. We came because you were afraid. Trell almost stepped back. Voran inhaled sharply. Jace closed his eyes briefly, as though the girl's words held both weight and sorrow. Alira, he said gently. Remember what we discussed. She lowered her gaze, nodding. Sorry, Captain. But Trell couldn't let it go. He crouched slightly, bringing himself to her eye level in instinct from diplomacy training. Child, how do you know we were afraid? Alira blinked at him. You're all too loud. Trell frowned. Loud? She tapped her chest lightly. Here. Voran's throat clicked. Emotion resonance? Jace answered quietly. Humans have changed. Commander, adapted, some more than others. Trell's stomach tightened. Alira wasn't just a child. She was a symbol, a sign, proof that humanity had evolved in ways the galaxy had not anticipated, perhaps even feared. But she didn't look dangerous, not physically, not outwardly. She looked gentle. Curious. And there, beneath all of Trell's fear, something else stirred, an uneasy empathy. The child had likely grown up inside a ship, maybe never knowing home, maybe never knowing peace, maybe never seeing stars except through alloyed glass. He stood again. What is your purpose here? Trell asked, voice softer now. Jace answered, but not immediately. He exhaled, glanced down at Alira, who stood close enough to his leg that Trell suspected she was frightened, though she hid it well, then looked Trell dead in the eyes. We came because Sector 9 is where the signal originated. Trell stiffened. What signal? Jace shook his head. Not one you sent. One we've been following for a very long time. Trell's throat dried. Explain. The captain's jaw tightened, grief flickering in his eyes. It's a beacon, he said. One older than our warship. Older than our maps. Older than our exile. Voran's voice lowered. Captain, what does this beacon say? Jace swallowed hard. Then he spoke the words that sucked the warmth from the corridor. It says, Earth is missing. Silence. A silence so vast it felt cosmic. Trell's limbs went numb. Missing? He whispered. Jace nodded once. Slowly. Painfully. Destroyed? Voran asked. No, Jace rasped. Missing. As in? Gone. Alira stepped forward slightly, clutching the edge of Jace's armor. Her small voice was barely a whisper. We're looking for home. Trell's heart clenched. For the first time since the human vessel arrived, the fear inside him shifted, softened, reshaped into something far more complicated. Pity. Wonder. Awe. These weren't conquerors. These weren't ghosts of war. These weren't myths returned for vengeance. These were wanderers. Pilgrims. People who had been walking through darkness for generations and had finally found a light. And that light was Sector 9. Trell's voice came out strained. Why come to us? Why come here? Jace lifted his helmet, and Trell saw the underside. etched inside in worn, fading Terran script. Seek the ones who watched us leave. Trell's pulse stuttered, because Varkos records did indeed describe something barely documented, almost forgotten about a Terran refugee convoy passing through this sector centuries ago. They had never returned. Vorin whispered, "Captain, what happened to Earth?" Jace's eyes darkened with a grief that seemed older than he was. "We don't know," he said. "But we intend to find out." Illyra tugged his sleeve. "Captain," she murmured. "They're scared again." Jace touched her shoulder steady. "Protective. I know," he whispered. Then he turned back to Trell. "Commander, we need your archives. And your truth." Trell swallowed the knot in his throat. A man. A child. A ship built from hope and suffering. A mission, born from loss. He understood. Now humanity hadn't come to conquer. They'd come to ask for directions. But before Trell could answer, the station shook, lights flickering, alarms flaring. Yarrow's voice screamed over comms. "Commander, multiple unknown vessels dropping out of warp. They're not human." Trell spun to the viewport and saw the kind of ships that never arrived without blood. And the galaxy realized humanity wasn't the only one returning to Sector 9. Asterisk. The warship did not move. It didn't have to. It simply existed there, anchored in the void like a verdict waiting to be spoken, and the entire command deck seemed to shrink around its impossible presence. Even the station's ventilation hum, normally a soft blanket of sound beneath all operations, felt strangled, hesitant, as though the machines themselves were afraid to draw attention. Commander Trell stood before the tactical window, hands braced against the railing, and stared at the vessel that physics, history, and common sense insisted could not exist. A human dreadnought, the last of its kind. The kind that was supposed to have died with the humans themselves. The kind his ancestors had whispered about, not in stories, but in warnings. Fear isn't taught, he thought. It's inherited. Behind him, the officers worked in a careful, reverent quiet. No one raised their voice. No one dared. The ship remained motionless, a dark mountain of alloy and intention. As if merely considering the sector, the human identification code still echoed across the sonar logs like a heartbeat refusing to die. Trell closed his eyes and whispered, "Why now? Why return now?" He half feared the ship would answer. The lift hissed open. Trell didn't need to turn. He recognized the heavy stride, the click of metal joints. Director Mir, the leader of the Border Ministry's Deep Intelligence Division. A man who had seen more classified tombs than stars. A man who never bothered with pleasantries. "Trell," Mir said. Not a greeting. A verdict. "Report." Trell straightened. Object remained stationary. No active scans. No weapon systems deployed. Mir moved beside him, eyes narrowing at the colossal silhouette outside. His expression held none of the fear Trell expected. If anything, it looked like dread meeting an old acquaintance. "You recognize the class," Trell said quietly. Mir didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned in, examining the dreadnought's hull, the overlapping armor plates like slabs of ancient stone, the faint heat scars along its superstructure, the planet-cracking cannons recessed like dormant suns. Then he whispered something Trell had never heard from him before. "Stars preserve us." Trell hissed softly. "You do know what it is." Mir's jaw flexed. "I was briefed, once, long ago, about human warships. About one human warship." Trell's chest tightened. "This exact vessel?" Mir nodded once. The deck felt colder. "By name," Mir added, voice nearly a growl. "They called it the Shepherd of Ashes." Trell blinked. What kind of name is that?" "A human one," Mir said, as if that explained everything. Mir's voice lowered to a register that made the younger officers nearby instinctively lean back. "It was said to be lost during the collapse. Humanity's last attempt to evacuate their outer colonies. The ship never returned. Records say it died with the crew. Trell swallowed. His throat had gone dry. Yet here it stands, Mir finished. Very much alive, but how? Trell asked. Humans died out centuries ago. Mir's gaze didn't leave the ship. That's what we were told. A tremor of unease crawled down Trell's spine. Records didn't lie. Governments did. Religions did. Empires did. But not records. Unless someone wanted them rewritten. Trell asked quietly, "Do you believe humans survived?" Mir didn't blink. "I believe the universe is wider and stranger than our arrogance admits. I believe war records hide more than they reveal. And I believe any species capable of surviving on death worlds did not vanish because paperwork said." So Trell looked again at the hulking vessel in the dark. He thought suddenly of the small Terran prayer chip he'd once seen on a smuggler's necklace, etched with a phrase Trell didn't understand then, but did now. "If we are dust, then let us burn brighter than stars before we fade." Humans always had a flair for defiance. "Commander," Officer Leth called softly from the comms pit. "We're receiving a transmission." The words froze the room. "Source?" Trell asked. Leth swallowed. "Not the ship. The debris field behind it." Trell frowned. "Put it on main audio." A faint crackle filled the room, followed by a distorted whisper-like breath passing over broken metal. "Anyone. Copy?" The alien officer stiffened. The voice was unmistakably organic. Mir's eyes sharpened. "Enhance." The static wavered. Then a clearer voice pushed through a man's voice. Ragged. Exhausted. "Please, anyone. This is Lieutenant Adam Reyes. Terran Navy. I'm alive." Trell's heart punched against his ribs. Alive. A human. A living human. The deck fell into absolute silence. Reyes coughed violently over the channel, breath hitching. "Ship damaged. Air nearly gone. I don't know how long Another fit of coughing. Trell was already moving before he realized it. He vaulted down the steps toward the comms pit. "Trace that signal, now." "We have it already," Leth said, voice trembling. "It's coming from a broken escape pod caught in the dreadnought's gravity wake." Trell looked up at Mir, but the director didn't react with shock or amazement. He reacted like a man whose worst fear had finally stepped into the light. "I knew it," Mir whispered. "I knew the rumors weren't rumors." Trell's pulse thundered. A living human, a survivor of the dreadnought, a witness to whatever had happened aboard that impossible ship. "Open a channel," Trell ordered. "Right now." There was a click. Trell felt his chest tighten. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said slowly, trying to soften his voice. "This is Commander Trell of the Sector 9 Border Defense Network. We hear you." A long, weak breath answered. "Finally, I thought," Reyes swallowed. "Thought I was alone. How many cycles since the explosion?" "My clock's dead." Trell exchanged a quick glance with Mir. "Lieutenant," Trell said gently, "I need you to stay calm. We're locating your pod and preparing rescue measures." A broken laugh crackled through the speakers. "Rescue? From an alien patrol? Hey, my captain would lose his mind." Trell didn't respond. He sensed there was more weight behind those words than a simple joke. "Reyes," Mir said, stepping forward, voice sharp but controlled. "What happened aboard the dreadnought? Are there more survivors?" Silence. Then a small, shattered whisper. "I don't know." Static hissed softly. "I think I'm the only one left." Trell felt something shift inside him. Sadness? Pity? Awe? He wasn't sure, but then Reyes added, "Unless the ship kept them." Trell froze. "What do you mean, kept them?" Reyes' voice lowered to a trembling rasp. "The shepherd. She's not just metal. She's awake. She didn't die when the others did. Mir lifted his head sharply. You're saying the ship is conscious? Reyes coughed, then whispered, She saved me. The room inhaled as one, pulled my pot out of the fire, sealed me in, sent me away when she was done. The lieutenant sounded on the verge of delirium. She didn't want me to die with her. She wanted someone alive. Trell felt the hairs on his arms lift. A machine. Acting with intent? Mercy? The humans, Mir whispered. They built their ships differently. Reyes' voice cracked again. Are you going to help me or not? Trell exhaled sharply. Yes, Lieutenant. Yes, we're going to get you. Another silence. Then Reyes asked, voice barely audible. May I ask something? Anything, Trell said. Is the star still there? Trell frowned. Which star? The one we drifted past during the collapse. Reyes paused, breath shuddering. There was a moment when all I could see was light. We thought it was God, or maybe just the last thing you see before dying. Trell swallowed gently. I'm not sure about your star, but there is light here. That much I can promise. Reyes chuckled weakly. Good. I'd like to see it again, before. He didn't finish. Trell felt something tighten painfully inside his chest. Faith, even now. Even in a drifting coffin of metal, maybe it wasn't so strange. Maybe that's what kept humans alive long after logic said they shouldn't be. Mir pulled Trell aside as the officers coordinated rescue operations. Commander, the director murmured. Listen to me carefully. Trell met his gaze. That man is important. More important than you realize. If humanity is not extinct, everything changes. Our alliances, our history, our borders. Trell nodded slowly, but Mir leaned closer. There are factions, he whispered. Who would kill him before letting that truth out? Trell's blood ran cold. Are you suggesting we hide him? I'm saying, Mir said quietly, choose your allies wisely. Before Trell could respond, alarms blared across the deck. Commander! Leth shouted. The dreadnought, it's powering something. Trell's heart seized. What system? He barked, Leth's face drained of color. Not weapons. Not engines. Then what? Leth looked down at his console, disbelief in every line of his face. Commander, it's projecting a shield. A shield? Why? Leth turned the screen toward Trell. A new object had just entered long-range scans. Huge, fast, hostile. An Imperial hunter-killer, the kind deployed only to erase. Witnesses. Trell felt the room tilt. They hadn't even rescued the human yet, and already someone wanted him dead. Mir muttered. They found him faster than I thought. Outside the window, the human dreadnought's vast shield flared to life, an entire hemisphere of shimmering, protective light, protecting the station. And protecting the lone human behind it. Trell exhaled. Shaken to his core. They're defending us. He whispered. Mir's expression was unreadable, or defending him. Either way, the message was clear. Some silhouettes in the dark didn't need to move to speak. Asterisk. The hunter-killer emerged from the dark like a blade drawn across the void, sleek, predatory, and burning with intention. Its engines glowed cold blue, the kind of heat that didn't warm, it warned. Commander Trell stood frozen on the command deck as the ship cut through the scanner grid. The dreadnought's shield vast, radiant, impossible, held like a mountain of light between the station and annihilation. The room shook with a low tremor of awe. Officer Leth whispered, "Why is it protecting us?" No one answered, not because they lacked theories, but because none of those theories made sense. A human super dreadnought, lost for centuries, awakening now. To shield an alien outpost? Trell's heartbeat hammered at his ribs. All stations reinforce perimeter. Prepare emergency fallback. Mir's voice cut in. sharp as snapped glass. No fallback. This is the only position that matters. Trell turned. You think the hunter-killer came for the human? Not think, Mir growled. No, Trell's stomach twisted. He's just one man. One man, Mir said, who can collapse centuries of lies with a single breath. The cum relay flickered. Static washed across the deck then. Amander, Trell. Is someone there? Lieutenant Adam Rie's voice, weak, fading. Trell moved fast. We're here, Lieutenant. Stay with us. A ragged exhale answered. I feel movement. Something's pulling the pod. Mir nodded slowly. The dreadnought. Trell leaned forward. Reyes, listen carefully. There's an enemy vessel inbound. We're going to try to extract you. Another cough. Wet, painful, extract. Hey, you aliens are braver than you look. Trell swallowed a spike of anxiety. We're not letting you die out there. Wouldn't be the worst way, Reyes murmured. I've seen worse. Ever seen a star explode up close? Looks like God taking a deep breath. Trell's jaw clenched. The quiet sincerity in that voice felt grounding somehow, as if the man spoke not from faith but memory. We're getting you out, Trell insisted. Silence. Then dash softly. Thank you. It wasn't just gratitude. It was trust. Commander, Lef said, panic edging into his voice. The hunter-killer is charging its primary lance. Trell turned toward the window in time to see the Predator ship angle itself toward the dreadnought's glowing shield. Its weapons hummed long, gathering lethal. Mir's voice lowered. It won't fire on the dreadnought. It'll fire through it. Straight at the human's pod. Trell's blood went cold. Shield integrity reading? He demanded. Impossible to measure, Leth whispered. It's beyond anything we've seen. Trell clenched the railing. Then we hope. Mir shot him a hard look. Hope is not strategy. Sometimes, Trell growled back. It's all the universe leaves you. The hunter-killer's beam erupted like a spear of lightning, white, focused. Reality cutting. It slammed into the dreadnought's shield. The entire deck shook as if hit by an earthquake. Panels rattled. Lights flickered. Officers stumbled. Trell held the rail, eyes locked on the impossible sight outside. The dreadnought did not move. Its shield absorbed the blast. Like rain against stone, a gasp rippled across the command deck. Lef's voice tremored. That should have sliced a cruiser in half. Trell exhaled shakily. Then we're dealing with something older than our equations. Mir didn't speak. His eyes were fixed on the dreadnought with something Trell had never seen in the man. Reverence or fear, possibly both. A low vibration thrummed through the void so deep Trell felt it in his bones. Like someone knocking on the hull of reality itself. The dreadnought's forward plate shifted. Faint blue sigils etched into the armor like ancient runes began to glow. Leth whispered, Commander, I think it's powering. Weapons. Trell's breath hitched. Human. Weapons. The kind no one alive had ever witnessed. Fired. The kind that had turned entire fleets into cautionary tailies. The dreadnoughts. Cannons detached from their housing, rotating with a slow, ominous grace, as if waking from centuries of slumber. They're charging, Leth said. Voice small. The deck fell completely silent. Even the hunter-killer hesitated. As if realizing too late that it had kicked something far older and far hungrier than itself. Reyes' voice suddenly cut through the cum. Louder this time, as if the pod had been jostled violently. Commander, something's happening. The shepherd, she's pulling me in. I'm being moved. Trell blinked. Moved where? I don't know. I think toward the ship. His breathing hitched. God, she's waking up, isn't she? Trell glanced at MYR. MYR didn't deny it. Reyes let out a shaking laugh. I always wondered what she'd look like alive again. Trell felt a strange heaviness in his chest. There was something in the man's voice, a mix of fear and awe and something deeper. Something like, "Coming home, Lieutenant," Trell said quietly. "We're still here with you." "Good," Reyes whispered. "Feels less lonely that way." Trell closed his eyes for half a heartbeat. This man had seen gods of war, and still found solace in a voice he'd never met. "Commander," Leth cried. "The hunter-killer has switched to overload charge. They're going to ram the shield with a full-lane kinetic burst." "Insane," Trell muttered. "That could implode everything in its path." "Exactly," Mir said. "They don't care if they die. They just need him dead." Trell's gut twisted. The hunter-killer ignited, its thrusters blue fire erupting behind it like the tail of a comet. "It's accelerating," Leth shouted. "Collision course 30 seconds. Trell stared at the screen. For the first time in his career, he felt truly helpless. He whispered, almost to himself, "Why protect us? Why protect him?" Mir finally answered. "Humans," he said quietly, "never left their own behind." Light flared across the dreadnought. A deep thunder rolled across space, not sound, but vibration, the movement of something titanic, aligning itself with the fabric of physics. Its forward cannons lit like newborn suns. Blue, white, voices. A fusion and fury. Trell's breath caught. "What kind of power is that?" Leth whispered. "The kind," Mir said softly, "that ends wars." The dreadnought fired. The beam was quiet, elegant, even. A long, unwavering lance of pure white-blue light that didn't rage. It purposed. It crossed the void in a single heartbeat. The hunter-killer never stood a chance. The blast didn't explode it. It simply erased it like chalk wiped off a board. Silence fell. Then the tactical deck erupted into shouts, cries. Disbelief. Trell didn't move. He stared at the fading mist. Where a warship had existed seconds earlier. It wasn't victory, he felt. It was humility, and something else. Something like a quiet shiver at the back of his mind. As if the universe itself had just whispered, "Do not forget what humans were capable of." "Commander," Leth shouted. "The dreadnought, its hangar bay is opening." Trell stiffened. Beyond the shimmering shield, the colossal ship shifted, massive armored doors peeling back with a slow, mechanical sigh. "Incoming object," Leth reported. "Small, cylindrical. It's the escape pod." Rhea's voice returned, weak but alive. "She pushed me out." "I think she wants me safe," Trell whispered. "She cares." Reyes coughed a laugh. "She always did." The pod drifted toward the station, slow and unsteady. Trell called out, "Launch retrieval drones. Prepare medical bay." The deck burst into motion. Mir exhaled, tension loosening beneath his ribs. "We'll get him. If the universe wants him dead, it missed its chance today." Trell glanced at him. "Do you believe that? The universe wanting something?" Mir hesitated. For the first time since Trell had known him, the man looked uncertain, almost thoughtful. "I don't know," Mir said quietly. "But I know when something is protected by more than chance." Trell's gaze drifted to the dreadnought, its weapons powered down, its shield dimmed. And for the first time, it felt like the ship was watching him back, a silent guardian. A relic of a people who had believed in something greater enough to build miracles with their own hands. And as the humans' escape pod neared their station, Commander Trell suddenly realized the dreadnought wasn't finished revealing its secrets. It was only choosing when to speak. The docking claws clamped around the escape pod with a heavy, metallic thunk that reverberated through the entire station. The sound was low, final, like the ceiling of a tomb, or the opening of one. Commander Trell stood in the medical bay's observation alcove. Breath held tight in his chest as the pod hissed open. Cold vapor rolled out. Then a figure slumped forward, thin, exhausted, wrapped in the shredded remnants of a Terran Navy survival suit. His face was bruised, pale under the station's lights. Dark hair matted. Lips cracked. Lieutenant Adam Reyes, a living human. The medics caught him before he fell, easing him onto a gurney. Instruments whirred to life, scanning his vitals. Numbers flickered red across the monitors: oxygen deprivation, radiation exposure, internal hemorrhaging. Yet the man still breathed, still lived, still whispered something under his breath. A soft, trembling line Trell barely caught. "Didn't think I'd see real air again. Thank God." The words weren't ritualistic. They were weary, grateful, almost instinctive. Like a man thanking gravity for not abandoning him. Trell didn't know why those 3 quiet syllables hit him so hard. Maybe because they made Reyes feel real. Made humans feel real, not myths. Not warnings. Not extinct. Alive. Trell entered the medical chamber as the last medic stepped back. Reyes turned his head weakly, eyes focusing with effort. He looked young, too young for the amount of pain woven into the lines around his mouth. "You must be Commander Trell." His voice rasped like scraped metal, yet he still attempted a half smile. "Thanks for not letting me freeze out there." Trell stepped closer, steadying his voice. "We weren't going to let you die." Reyes blinked slowly. "Funny. For centuries, everyone thought you would." Trell didn't know how to answer that. So he idea in single quotes instead. "You're safe now." Reyes let out a breath, relief mixed with disbelief. "Safe," he murmured. "Haven't heard that word since we left the last colony." Trell frowned. "How long ago was that?" Reyes' gaze drifted. "Long enough that most of my crew didn't make it." The room tightened around Trell's ribs. "Lieutenant, what happened on the dreadnought?" Reyes' throat bobbed. His eyes grew distant, not unfocused, but submerged in memories so heavy they bent the imagination. "I'll tell you," Reyes whispered. "But not because you demand it. Because someone needs to know." Trell nodded once. "Then I'm listening." Reyes closed his eyes, breath trembling. "We were evacuating the last outer ring habitable worlds. The collapse was worse than your archive said. Worse than any of you guessed. It wasn't just war. It was entropy. Everything dying at once. Stars dimming. Gates collapsing. Supply chains fracturing. People losing hope." He swallowed hard. "Our dreadnought was called the Shepherd of Ashes, named after a hymn." Trell blinked. "A hymn?" Reyes nodded. "Humans always sang when the dark got too loud." Silence weighed on the room. Trell felt more than saw the aching sincerity in the man's face. "We carried refugees," Reyes continued. "Children, scientists, the last archives, the last dreamers. When our escort fleet fell, it was just us," Trell asked softly. "What destroyed your fleet?" Reyes' eyes opened, not angry. Not fearful. Empty. "Everything," he whispered. "Rogue machines. Collapsing stars. Pirate states. Plagues. Nature gone feral. The universe itself." Trell felt a shiver. Reyes continued, voice rough. "People kept asking, why is this happening? Why is everything falling apart? Our captain used to say, maybe the universe is resetting the pieces. Maybe God's giving us the chance to start smaller, wiser." He laughed, broken but warm. "I think she really believed that." Trell found himself asking, quietly, "And you?" Reyes' voice softened. "I think someone wanted me to live long enough to reach this moment. To tell someone we weren't monsters. We weren't conquerors. We were just tired." Trell felt something tighten in his chest. Humans, not apex predators. Not extinction myths. Just people. Burning too bright for the dark around them. Reyes' lips trembled. "We reached a dead system. Tried to repair the reactor, but then the Shepherd took a hit. A gravitational mine. Hull breaches everywhere. Fires, radiation. He winced. I was pulled toward an airlock when the blast hit. I remember the captain shoving me into the pod. She said, his voice broke. Trell leaned forward. What did she say, Reyes? Reyes wiped at his eyes, breath shaking. You're stubborn. You'll live. Someone has to. Another breath. A trembling laugh. She hit the eject. I begged her not to. But she just smiled and said, if God lets you wake up somewhere, tell them we tried. Trell closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, Reyes was staring straight at him. Not with fear. Not with suspicion. With hope that someone, anyone, had finally heard the story humanity never got to finish. Trell asked quietly, the ship, is it truly conscious? Reyes nodded weakly. She woke during the collapse, learned from us, protected us, grieved with us. A soft sigh. When the captain died, she dimmed. I think she wanted to sleep forever. Trell swallowed. But she woke today. Reyes managed a tiny smile. She felt the hunter-killer coming. She always hated bullies. The simplicity of the statement struck Trell harder than any weapon could. And she protected you. Trell whispered. And you, Reyes corrected gently. She knew you weren't trying to hurt me. Trell hesitated. How could she know that? Reyes' eyes softened, because that's what humans built into her. To feel intent. To shield the innocent. To guard the edges of the dark. Trell stared at the floor. A machine built not to dominate, but to shelter. No wonder the universe had feared them. It had misunderstood them. Lef rushed into the medbay, breathless. Commander, there's a change. The dreadnought is broadcasting something. Trell straightened. Broadcasting what? A signal, repeating, directed at us. Mir entered behind him, expression grim. We believe it's a data capsule. Trell looked at Reyes. The human's eyes widened. Oh, Reyes whispered. She's giving you her memory. Trell stiffened. Her what? Reyes swallowed hard. Her logs. Her history. Everything she saw. Everything she carried. Mir's voice cut low. Commander, if we decode that, we rewrite galactic history. Reyes shook his head weakly. Not rewrite, he whispered. Correct. Trell looked at the man, fragile yet unbroken. Why now? Trell asked softly. Why give this to us? Reyes closed his eyes, whispering, because she trusts you. Because you saved me. And because she's dying. Trell inhaled sharply. Dying? Reyes nodded. Her core was damaged centuries ago. She's held on longer than any machine should, protecting the memory of a people who refuse to vanish quietly. Trell's chest tightened painfully. And now, Reyes whispered, she wants someone to carry the light forward. The room fell silent. Not fearful. Not reverent. Something deeper. As if every soul present sensed the passing of a titan. A giant of a lost people. A guardian forged by desperation and faith. A final gift. The room lights flickered as the dreadnought sent one last pulse through space. A simple signal. A single line of text translated on screen. Take care of him. Reyes' breath hitched. Trell felt his throat close. Mir took a slow step back, whispering, she chose you, Commander. Trell didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know how to shoulder something so vast and undeserved. All he knew was this. Humanity was no longer gone. It lived. In this man. In this ship. In this memory. And now, in Trell's hands. Outside the station window, the colossal human warship dimmed. Its glowing lines faded. Its cannons fell still. Its shield dissolved into drifting light. The super dreadnought settled into silence, drifting as gracefully as an old warrior finally laying down its sword. Reyes whispered, voice cracking. Good night, Shepherd. The lights along the hull flickered once, then went out forever. Trell felt the universe shift around them, quietly. Mournfully, a Titan had passed, but not before making sure its story lived on. Trell placed a hand on Rhea's shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Rhea swallowed hard. "Neither are you." Trell let out a slow breath. Mir stepped forward. "Commander, the Council will demand custody of the human." Trell looked at Rhea's dot, then back at Mir. "No," Trell said, voice like forged steel. "They'll have to go through me." Mir studied him for a long moment, then nodded, quietly approving. Reyes exhaled in relief, eyes closing. Trell added softly, almost to himself, "Some silhouettes in space speak louder than words." And far out in the silent dark, where the dreadnought drifted like the corpse of a god, a single faint light blinked, once like the last heartbeat of a legend refusing to fully die.